So good morning from CES 2019. This is our second dispatch, hopefully, from the show floor. We never know what we're going to find, which is why I kind of wander around. So we're starting our day at the South Hall, and what we're going to be doing is making our way over to the Sands Exposition Center for all the startups in Eureka Park. But there was a couple of things that I knew you wanted to see here in South Hall, so I'm going to go grab those, and then we'll head over there. Now, I do want to let you know that this is being sponsored by Silicon Dust, the makers of the HD Home Run. And we've got a little ad for you to watch, and I want to thank them for their support. So here you go. CES 2019 coverage is being sponsored by Silicon Dust, the makers of the HD Home Run. Thanks to the HD Home Run all-in-one experience, cord cutters no longer need to cobble together multiple applications or services to create a quality TV experience. HD Home Run all-in-one combines free live local broadcasts from your antenna, top cable TV channels, and a DVR service, one that you, the cord cutter, completely controls into a single, seamless app. For a limited time, new users can enjoy 2 free weeks of HD Home Run Premium TV and 2 months of free access to the HD Home Run DVR. So again, HD Home Run is sponsoring us once more, and I really appreciate their support. It makes all of this coverage possible. So earlier in the week here, we got driven around town by a self-driving car. Lyft has an arrangement with a company that is providing active trips. They've been doing this now for about a year, since last CES. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to film inside the car, but it was pretty cool to be able to have a car just drive you around town. Now, these cars are not being driven without supervision. In fact, there are 2 people in the car. There's a driver who can take over at any time, and they have an engineer who's got a laptop monitoring events that are out of the ordinary for their software engineers to see. So it's a very much a baby step, but this was a level 4 car, which means that it can drive itself autonomously, but it still needs a human in with them. And they said their goal is to get to level 5 in the near future that would not need any human whatsoever. We'll see if policymakers go for that. So come on, let's go take a walk around the floor and see what we can find. So this is a booth that I look for every year here at the show. This is a distributor, but they are the distributor for Retrobit. And one of the videos that gets commented on the most from last year's coverage was some of these controllers that we covered in last year's coverage, which are these replica or recreations of the Sega Genesis and the Sega Saturn controllers. So they haven't come out yet, but it looks like they're targeting February. So this is like a month away now. And of course, they've got the translucent one here, but they also have one that looks a lot more traditional. And they're going to have these available in a couple of different scenarios. So these are the USB ones. So these you can plug into your computer or your Nintendo Switch or something like that. But then they also are making versions that will work with the original hardware, which are somewhere in the mix here as well, so that you have the choice. Now, you can't do both, so your choice is get a USB version or a version that supports the original hardware, but they really got it down. You have Goldie followed me back over here for a second because I really like the packaging. Because, you know, back in the 90s when I was playing with my Sega Genesis, this is what the box looked like. They've got a really nice recreation of the original Sega look here. And these are all licensed by them, so Sega's had some involvement with it. They have the Saturn controllers here, too, which look pretty cool. Let's see what those look like. And I'm going to walk down a little bit more here because they've got this one that interested me. Now, this is not going to work on the original Saturn, but they've taken the Saturn controller and added some analog sticks to it. This one's not due until the summer, so this one's got a little ways to go. It's going to be a Bluetooth controller. They've got a Sega Genesis Bluetooth controller, too. That one looks like around the springtime. So they're going to have the wired ones out first, and then you'll be able to get the wireless ones a little bit later on. And some of these actually will plug into the original hardware so that you can use these new wireless controllers with an original Sega Genesis or a Sega Saturn. And they also, we'll keep going here, there's a lot of stuff. They also have some new Dreamcast controllers, and it looks like they've got VMU support here, too. So you can plug in your old VMUs and get a new Dreamcast controller. These are not USB. This looks like they're going to work with the original Dreamcast hardware there, but there's still a lot of Dreamcasts out there. I'm certainly a fan of that, and if your controllers have fallen apart, this might be a great option for you. Now, they're also showing Nintendo some love here, and this was something that caught my eye. Now, if you are a Nintendo 64 fan, the legendary third-party controller was made by Hori. This is a recreation of that. And Nintendo 64 controllers are often hard to replicate, especially when it comes to the analog stick. So they told me they have some logic here inside the controller to more accurately replicate some of the dead zones that you might have had with the original controller to give it that kind of feel. Now this one will work with the Nintendo 64, hence the cable right here. But they also have one that works with the Nintendo Switch via USB, and a lot of people who like to play Smash Brothers have been really enjoying this one. They don't have this out yet, but there is a wireless version in the works. So this one, I believe, is coming out pretty much in March, in springtime, but the wireless one is still yet to be announced. These aren't that expensive either. It looks like these are going to sell for about $25 or so. These will probably be a little more when they release. And then just a couple other Nintendo items up here. They have a few Platinum Collection game pads that are for the original NES and SNES. And I'm dying to get one of these. I got to get one. This is the Power Stick, which is the replica of Nintendo's old arcade stick that they had, which I never got when I was a kid. That one looks like it might be a fun little alternative. And I just wanted to show you one other thing because this is something that is in prototype phase, and they wanted to get some feedback at the show about it. So you might remember the Sega Nomad, which was a portable Sega Genesis that devoured batteries. And they are prototyping this. This may not become a product, but it's here just to see what kind of interest there is. And it would really replicate the Nomad, complete with a cartridge slot, so you can play your Sega Genesis games on the road. And I was looking at this thinking, wow, this thing's really big. And I asked one of the folks here, is that how big the Nomad was? And he said, yeah, that's exactly the same size as the original. So if you're nostalgic for your Nomad that might be dead, this might be something to look at if it comes out in the future. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'm sure they'll be taking a look to see what you have to say. So here's a little stocking stuffer that they told me did really well at the holiday season. Looks like a little Game Boy. It's got a bunch of NES games on it that are officially licensed. So sometimes, of course, we see some of these little portables that have pirated ROMs and whatnot. This one's legit. It's got Mega Man and a bunch of other games on here. Open up the thing so you can see what it's got. So they've got Capcom Data East, a unique version of Tetris for this device. It's got a lot more, but some of the games are kind of filler games, but they have a nice interface that kind of differentiates the the filler stuff from the officially licensed things. And this might be not something you buy and play with a lot, but if you have somebody who likes retro games in your life, $34.99. It's available at most of the big box retailers and kind of a fun little gift to give to somebody who likes games like these. So one of the things that Retrobit has been doing is publishing NES and Super Nintendo games as new. And this is one of them. This is Metal Storm. This one is yet to be released, but it's going to be available through limited run games. And if you are a fan of getting your Switch and PS4 and Xbox games in physical format, Limited Run has been doing that with a lot of popular digital titles. And now they're going to pair up and do a retro release. So what they're going to do is take this older NES game that was very much underappreciated at the time, but has become very appreciated now among enthusiasts. And they're going to release a physical version complete with a collector's edition and, of course, an original NES cartridge. No pricing on this yet, but look over at Limited Run Games, get on their email list, and they'll be letting you know when this is available. And I think there's kind of a broader market now for some of these cartridge games because we have a lot of clone systems that can play these now that are not all that expensive in and of themselves, and it's kind of fun to get a new cartridge game. I just like that physicality of it. So here's a cool little controller that 8BitDo is coming up with. They always had these little ones. This one is really tiny. It's called the Zero 2. I'm not sure how practical it's going to be for many gamers, but it's kind of fun. Maybe my daughters can play a video game or two with these. And they've got a couple other colors. They're going to have Goldie come around with me for a second here, and you can see some of the other colors they're releasing. So you've got some of the classic Game Boy colors here, and looks like a classic Nintendo color as well. So pretty cool stuff. And of course they have the red one here too. And this is from 8BitDo, and this company distributes 8BitDo in addition to some of the retro bit stuff. And again, I always love coming by this booth because they've got a lot of cool stuff for retro gaming fans like myself, and a lot of neat things that you wouldn't think were something that the world needed, but maybe that'd be kind of fun to play a few games with. So I'm always on the lookout for cool retro-y kind of things, and this one caught my eye. This is called the Polycade. It costs about $3,900, but if you think about what a real nice arcade cabinet costs, it's kind of in the ballpark. It includes a gaming PC that's built in. They've designed their own interface around this, so you can bring in your own PC games and drop them into the interface here, but they've also integrated emulators. You've got to bring your ROMs, of course, and if you hit the button here, we can load up Double Dragon and start playing the game. Now, what's neat is you've got the full joystick here. It feels clicky, as the arcade ones do. Really nice buttons here. You've got a trackball, so if you wanted to play some Centipede or something, you can do all of that. And it mounts on the wall, and it's not all that large. And then they also showed me there is a drawer here that you can pull out. Maybe my friend can help me get this drawer out real quick. And you have access to a little USB riser, so if you wanted to plug in an Xbox controller or something like that, or a keyboard or mouse, you can do that to do some maintenance on the machine, if you will. But pretty cool cabinet. It's metal, nice and sturdy. It looks retro, but it's also modern, and I think if you put this up on the wall or something, it's not all that thick, so it might be a little more forgiving to spouses like mine that may not want a bunch of arcade cabinets kicking around. So we are at our second stop of the day. This is the Sands Exposition Center, and here is where all the startups are located. So we're going to go down into the basement of this building. This is like the lowest cost real estate here at the show, but it's also something that a lot of media don't cover because these are all like small and scrappy startups, and we often don't find a lot, but we're always looking for those little needles in the haystack, those hidden gems of the show, which hopefully we'll find down there. And let's take a look and see what we come across downstairs in Eureka Park. So this is something that I did not know about, but is relevant to something we just looked at on the channel. This is called the Raven, and it is a dashboard camera very similar to the Owl camera that we looked at just recently, but it's a little better in my opinion. So what it will do is it will connect up to your vehicle's diagnostic port. This will power it, but will also provide data back to the device here. So if your kid is driving around, for example, and the car has a diagnostic issue that pops up, it will actually push you a notification remotely. It will tell you where the car is, and of course you can make a call and tell them to pull over immediately or something like that. If somebody brakes, an emergency braking situation, you get push a notification about that, and it will automatically, even in one of those emergency braking situations, record 15 seconds of video both outside and inside, so you can see if your kid was maybe on the phone when they brake too quickly, speeding issues, all that kind of stuff shows up on here. What I really liked about it is that it integrates some of the LTE functions that the Owl had, but they also give you a little more control over the recording. So you can put an SD card in here and pop out that card and get the raw footage out. So like many dash cams, it's continuously recording. So this is something that if you want to get the footage out quicker, you can pop it out and put it into your computer, but you can also plug it into your PC with a USB cable as well. So you're not into this metered situation that you were with that Owl camera that I know a lot of you didn't like. So this is about the same price. It's $299. And then there's an $8 per month fee for the LTE service. But I think it's a little more mature than what we saw out of the Owl camera, and I'd like to get this in for a full review. So if you've ever been in like a school building or some commercial place and the fire alarm goes off and those doors close by themselves, there's a reason for that, because doors can be a buffer for fires. And there's a new product here called Life Door that hopes to replicate this in your home. So you replace one of your door hinges with this, and it's battery powered, 2 AA's, and it listens for your smoke alarms, and if they're going off, it will close your doors and latch them to give you more of a chance to escape a fire, especially if you're sleeping. So what they're saying now is you want to close to doze. It's the new stop, drop, and roll, which is when you fall asleep, close your door, because if there is a fire, you'll have a better chance of getting out of a burning building, given that the door is a buffer to that fire. And if you don't like having your doors closed, or you have kids like I do that don't like sleeping in the dark with their doors closed, this is a way to have some more peace of mind. It's going to cost about $100 for a single unit. They'll have a multiple unit discount. They're going to sell direct to consumer initially, but eventually you might be able to find this in a retail store as well. So one of the things that's been bugging me about smart home screens is that you can't really install any apps on them. So I was hoping when Amazon and Google had their smart home devices with the display that maybe you could install apps on them and kind of run your live TV and stuff like that. So this little device here can do that. So this has got Alexa built in. This is $199 on Amazon. So I could say, I'm going to take the microphone away so I don't trigger anybody's thing here. Alexa, what time is it? So we've got a full, Amazon Echo kind of capability to this. It's a little noisy in here, so it didn't pick up. But if I hit the little home button here, I've got Android. So I could go into the Google Play Store here, install my HD Home Run app, for example, and watch live TV in my kitchen, but then I can go back and get all of the Alexa functionality. And it's kind of cool to see Alexa here kind of merged with a Google device, which is kind of cool. The only gripe I've got is that you have to have the Clazio app open for that Alexa thing to work, but that's a small inconvenience, I think, especially if you just want to watch TV every once in a while. You can exit out of it, load up your TV app, and then go back to it later there. They do tell me that they'll probably try to get some kind of Google functionality integrated in the future as well. It's pretty cool stuff. You can find these on Amazon. It's called the Clazio. So we just saw a little smart home device that was running the full version of Android and had Alexa built in. These have Google Assistant built in, also running the full version of Android. So you can do your okay, you know what, get all the Google Assistant functionality, but it's pretty attractive. And again, I could put my HD Home Run app on this as well. So I think we're probably going to see more of this kind of stuff making its way out here that has a lot more functionality than what we've seen out of the Amazon Echo Show and the Google Home, for example. This one, unfortunately, is not available in the United States. Actually, none of these are yet. They're available in Europe, though. They start at about $200 for this one. These are a little bit less, but they are going to have an Alexa-powered version of this little one here coming to the United States very shortly, but it, too, will have the full version of Android. So there is hope if you want a smart speaker in your kitchen that can play live TV, and hopefully we'll get something like this in soon. Oh, by the way, this is called the Archos, and you can find it in Europe, but not in the US. So I ran into GPD here on the floor, and this is something I haven't yet seen. It's now available. This is the GPD Pocket 2. It is a Core M3 powered little laptop device. We looked at the original GPD Pocket when that one came out, but this one again has got a Core M3, so it's a little faster than the other one. Similar guts to what we saw in the GPD Win 2 that we looked at a little while back. These are really handy for IT professionals because they like having the full keyboard. You can really get a lot done with that. They've got a new one coming out as well that integrates a trackpad and also has a serial port on it that might be even more appealing to IT professionals. I believe they've got Linux running on these now in addition to Windows too. So these are really handy little full-blown computers that don't take up a lot of room. And if you're in a scenario where you've got to constantly monitor things, having a little computer like this that is a full computer might be very useful. So we are looking at the Cosmo Communicator. This is something else that we saw about a year ago that wasn't yet released. Now it is, and they've got a new one on the way, so we'll kind of step through everything. So these are smartphones, but they're also little pocket computers. So they run Android, but you can configure it to dual boot into one of 4 different Linux distributions. They're adding a few more. So you can choose what your distribution is, and then you can just kind of dual boot it when you load it up. So I've got Firefox here running in a window along with a terminal window here. You get all the creature comforts of your Linux distribution on a little tiny device. They've got USB-C ports on it as well. So again, another neat little device for the IT professional. The phone calling is a bit limited on the Linux side, so you can make calls with an experimental app on one of the distributions. It supports Debian and Sailfish, and I think they have a few others they're in the process of working on. And one of the issues with it, though, is that when you wanted to make a call, you have to kind of flip it down and put it into phone mode like this, so there's no screen or any other interactivity. But they have a new one coming out soon that is in the box here. Maybe Goldie can try to swing around and take a look at it. So it's very new. They don't want anybody touching it yet, but you can see it's got an OLED display on there, so you can do some interactivity with the phone component separate from the operating system. It's got a fingerprint reader and a 24-megapixel camera. So the new one is about $799 when it's released. This one's out now. It's $599. And it's kind of, again, a neat little mini computer. And if you're looking for, Linux in your pocket, not a bad way to go with it. And I believe also the newer one will have a backlit keyboard too. So it's got all the stuff you might be looking for in a geeky device like this. All right, we have left Eureka Park, and now we're up on the second floor of this building. And I ran into a company that I like quite a bit, which is the ECS Elite Group. They make the Liva Mini PCs that we get in from time to time. And this is a newer one that they've got here. And this is really a mini PC. It's like a mini PC, if you will. Windows 10. It's got a Gemini Lake processor, 2 or 4 gigs of RAM. You can spec it out with 32 or 64 gigs of storage. So you can pretty much run Windows 10 or Linux on this little guy. I'm going to try to get this one in to play around with it a bit. I think it starts at about $200. Should perform about where some of the other ones we've seen perform, but it is rather compact, so we'll have to see how the thermal performance does. These are some of the other ones we have looked at, but this one is going to come out a little bit later in the spring. This is an AMD Ryzen-based device. It's got a Ryzen 3, 5, or 7 APU. It's going to start at around $200 though, so around the same price as the Intel Mini PCs, but you might be able to get a little more gaming done on this. You recall we looked at a Ryzen-based laptop not all that long ago. It was kind of a $400 device. Very impressive graphics performance out of the AMD processors. Now we're starting to see some mini PCs have these chips. And what's happening is, and I'm hearing this at the show, is that there's a bit of a shortage on the Intel mobile processors that we've seen in a lot of these mini PCs before. So there's an opening perhaps for AMD to step in and start offering some of their lower cost chips that in some cases might perform better for certain applications. So I'm going to be really eager to check this out, and I'm sure we might see many others like this coming in soon. So right next to where we just were is the QNAP booth, and they've got a lot of stuff that I didn't know they made. So we're going to start all the way on the end there. Now that thing looks like your typical network switch. It's got PoE on some of the ports as well, gigabit switch, but it's also a NAS, so you can have a single device be your network switch and your network attached storage device. QNAP has a pretty robust operating system themselves. We've looked at a few QNAP NASs in the past, and I hope to get to some more soon. This one intrigued me also. This is not a storage device, but a networking device, because now 10 gig Ethernet, I think, is going to be something we're going to see a lot more of. And if you've got a computer that doesn't have 10 gig Ethernet, you probably need it. So you can get this Thunderbolt adapter. These cost now $100. They've come down considerably. QNAP is making these. And you can plug in your computer into a 10 gig network. We got to find some 10 gig switches. And then you can get faster speed. In fact, the Mac Mini that we just got as an edit station in the studio has a 10 gig Ethernet port on it. So I'm really eager to start playing with that. Then they've got a couple of other cool things. These are fanless NAS devices. I'll take this one out first. This one, I don't know what the price is on this one. I think these are around $500 or $600, give or take, without the drives. This is a solid-state fanless NAS, and you can put in 4 NVMe drives to get a really fast device here. It's got 10 gig Ethernet here on the back as well. So you could use this as a media serving thing, perhaps, or put it in a part of your office where, before you may not have wanted something with a fan blowing and hard drives going. They also have a larger device here. This is also fanless. Now, if you put in spinning drives, you'll hear those, but if you put in SSDs, it will be quiet, and it's another neat little device. This one's a little less expensive than the other one. This one might be very well suited for a home theater environment, and it looks like it's got the 10 gig Ethernet on it as well. Both of these, I believe, have the Intel processors with quick sync, so it should support Plex transcoding as well. So if you wanted to have your network attached storage in your home theater room, this might be something you can do there. One other thing real quick here, I'm going to jump right in front of the camera, which I'm never supposed to do, is this thing. This is not a NAS, but it's a RAID box, and it's Thunderbolt. So you can put in a couple of drives, scary RAID, a couple of SATA drives together or something like that. And they also have another one here that has a few more bays as well. So lots of stuff and kind of a real diverse line of products here coming from QNAP. We're going to try to get a few of these things in and put them through their paces, especially those fanless NAS devices. That sounds really interesting. So that is going to do it for day 2 here at CES. This was a fun trip. We actually found stuff. I always think every year, we're not going to find anything new or interesting, but we keep seeing things here. It's taking more effort to find those things, but nonetheless, we find them. There is one more dispatch to come. We're going to head over to Showstoppers next, which is another one of these things where we've got a ballroom with a whole bunch of companies in all together. So we're going to go and do that. That will be dispatch number 3. And then after that, we'll have our interview with Silicon Dust, the makers of HD Home Run, who, by the way, are our sponsors for this trip. So I want to thank them for their support and thank all of you for watching. And stay tuned, a lot more to come. This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Chris Allegretta, the 4 Guys with Quarters podcast, Tom Albrecht, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/s.